welcome to the last mixtape. My name is Stephen White, and on this week's show, we turn our lens to Charli XCX's first steps into the world of Wuthering Heights with House. But first,
I feel that my inspiration comes from all of the different corners of my personality. Yeah. And if I were to dull them down, I think I would feel a little bit suffocated. Like, I think I need to really feel everything like times 100. Whether that's like a great feeling or a terrible feeling, I don't know. It all funnels back into my sort of creative core.
not my words, but the words of Charli XCX. Why, dear listener, and indeed, dear viewer, we're just listening to the words of the dance and art pop star at the beginning of this week's show. Well, this week, I thought we'd delve into the world once more of Wuthering Heights, but this time through the lens of Charli XCX's brand new single House, featuring John Cale. And as always, this is very much a culture, art and music show, so we'll be looking at the work of Charli XCX and John Cale with House through that lens. Let's dive in. Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights, set for release in 2026, is a deconstructionist, highly stylised reinvention of Emily Bronte's classic gothic tragedy. Starring Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, the Saltburn director's latest film is set to be one of the event cinema moments of 2026. Composer Anthony Willis is scoring the film, but acclaimed dance pop artist Charli XCX has been invited to craft original songs into sonic ghosts that capture the haunting nature of the wild and windy moors, now seen in her brand new single taken from the soundtrack, House. For Charli, House marks her first new work since Brat, a zeitgeist record that captured her at her most chaotic, self-aware and hyper-pop while capturing the imagination of a generation and a summer. But after the high-gloss fever dream, she wanted something entirely new, entirely opposite. House is that opposite. Where Brat reflected a neon green aesthetic of endless summers, House bleeds faded greys and deep monochromes into the depths of winter. It's Charli XCX stepping away from the synthetic euphoria of the dance floor and into the gothic corridor, trading pop maximalism for something new, raw, deliberate, and John Cale. Founding member of the Velvet Underground, pioneer of the avant-garde, the man who once described music as elegant and brutal. That phrase has stayed with Charli, and she reached out and sent him the early demos. The futurist and the ghost of avant-garde meeting in the ruins of pop architecture. Once again, House marks a moment where Charli XCX establishes herself as both mainstream pop while knowingly embracing the underground. A new, gothic, avant-garde tone comes bounding out of her music. House plays like a seance, capturing the gothic ghost story feel of Bronte's original work. John Cale's voice crackles and crawls out of the dark, almost mournful, before the song erupts into noise, crashing distortion, metallic drums, Charli's voice screaming through the static, reminiscent of Kate Bush's haunting wails from way back in the 1970s. It's not structured as much as an art-pop collision, the old and the new crashing into each other until they become inseparable, melding into Cale's elegant and brutal music. You can hear that tension in droning notes, scratching strings, jagged feedback, and the low hum of machinery. Sonically and symbolically, like the house itself, alive and breathing in distorted memory. The production feels like architecture built from sound, walls of static, spacious reverb echoing beneath Charli's and Cale's intertwined voice. Then there's the lines. I think I'm going to die in this house. I think you're gonna die in this house. In Wuthering Heights, the house is more than a setting. It is an isolated, gilded cage that traps the living and the dead. The story conveys the way love and rage become walls we can't escape. Every repetition of that line drives the nail deeper and deeper into the structure, playing into the sense of repetition Charli explored in Brat and bringing it into new and darker places. The house becomes a metaphor for the self, our inner architecture, the places we refuse to leave when they're killing us. It's about emotional entrapment, legacy, and the rooms we inherit and never quite repair. Beyond the song, there's a broader shift. Pop artists stepping into the gothic cinematic space, where the line between soundtrack and mainstream blurs. Charli XCX's house shows how far an artist can change, grow, and go. She's a pop artist using the language of dark, gothic art music to talk about identity, obsession, and the beautiful destruction of the self.
Now, I should say in this section that Charli XCX has just released Chains of Love, the second track from her Wuthering Heights album, which is upcoming. And I have to say, I was listening to it on the way into recording this, and I absolutely adore that track too. For very different reasons. I think it plays into the melodrama and the passion and the seduction of Wuthering Heights, especially when you look at the trailer for the movie itself with Emerald Fennell. And I think that really plays into the music as well, plays into the love and the relationship of Heathcliff and Kathy in the movie. So I absolutely adore that single, and to put it into context with house, I think it's shaping up to be a very interesting soundtrack album. And I think that's another one of those things as well that's really interesting about this project, really interesting about Charli XCX. I saw in a recent interview that she said after Brat she was kind of emotionally and artistically spent, especially in that kind of field, and that moving into film and the idea of moving into film really changed things and revitalised some of her creativity when it came to music. So I think it's really interesting when you see that. I think there's a little bit though of Wuthering Heights in Brat and in her album Crash and This Is How I'm Feeling Now. There's that kind of element of the macabre. I think there's always the element of the gothic with Charli XCX, even when it's played in the kind of electronic or dance pop field. I think Brat itself is an incredible work of artistry that really stood out in a summer full of huge albums from huge pop stars like Sabrina Carpenter, Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift, all released big albums that summer. But I think Charli XCX really set herself apart with Brat because of the artistry to it and because of the almost minimalism to it and the want and the need to kind of play into the repetition of dance music. And the anti-design feel of it as well also plays into that. I think from the very beginning she has framed herself as an artist very much willing to delve into different sounds, delve into different art styles, and playing into this now, making the soundtrack for a movie or being a part of a soundtrack to a movie is an incredible step, and I think a really interesting one too. Put that into further context when you see that this month Rosalia released her album Lux, which has been received to a critical acclaim, especially by myself. I absolutely love that record. But you see that artists now are moving towards things that are more avant-garde, more experimental in their music, whilst also keeping that pop feel. I think that's really interesting. I think it's really interesting because it shows, and I was talking about this with Rosalia, a huge level of respect from the artists for their audience. And I think Charli XCX has all of that. To introduce somebody like John Cale from the Velvet Underground and the experimental and beautiful artwork that he has done with music over the years and his own individual take of music, and to be a fan of that and to be able to bring that into your own music and know that your fans are going to come with you, and I've seen the reaction to this and people are loving the track, is really cool. I think that's one of the kind of the benefits. There's not many benefits to there being this kind of like music, all this music available to everyone all at once, but I think that's a real kind of play on it too. I think people's musical palettes are way, I think record companies in the industry don't respect how much people's musical palettes are, how wide they are, how much people are willing to take and how much people are willing to delve into new and different things and how much they want new and different things. I think house plays incredibly into that, whilst also still being in the field of being a soundtrack for a movie. Idea of setting herself apart whilst also setting herself apart from Brat. This is the perfect opportunity. And again, I've not seen Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights yet. I've seen some of the trailers. I've seen obviously the cast and everything like that. And I've seen Saltburn. So I have an idea of basically where it's going, but you can't tell until you actually see the thing itself. But I think, as I say, it plays into that melodrama. And obviously we can't talk about Wuthering Heights. We did a video on it only a couple of weeks ago, how I think Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights is the definitive adaptation of the novel itself. I don't see this so much as an adaptation from Charli XCX. I think this is her supporting and being a part of the art that is the movie itself, as much as the actors, as much as the score, as much as anything else. She's playing into the mood piece. And I think that's really incredible too. And I think she captures that mood, especially through the lens of this kind of modernist take on Wuthering Heights, incredibly well. From Chains of Love to House. House is a song that challenges the listener, make no mistake about it. When it starts off, it doesn't start off with Charli XCX, it starts off with John Cale. So it's really confronting that kind of the expectations from the very beginning. You're expecting Charli XCX, a very young pop artist, to start either singing or performing, and then you kind of get this almost spoken word piece from John Cale, which melds into their intertwined voices. I think it's incredible casting from Charli XCX to see that, and to see that how much heft this would actually give to the piece and play into the kind of ghostly gothic atmosphere of Wuthering Heights itself. I think Charli XCX then therefore is an incredible artist, and I think this is a really exciting thing, an exciting time I think for pop music as a whole, where other genres may be kind of having a kind of a dip period. I think pop is really kind of delving into and exploring more things. When you pair this, as I say, with Rosalia's looks, there's this kind of feeling that the avant-garde, the art, the kind of the other world or the mimetic is kind of delving into the pop world as well. And that's one of the great things as well about having John Cale. He, in his work with the Velvet Underground, obviously his work with Lou Reed, they are an artist or a band obviously that worked with Andy Warhol as part of the pop art movement, and themselves they took, Lou Reed famously was a pop songwriter before the Velvet Underground, and they took pop songs and they deconstructed them slightly. They added attention to them by adding a kind of an artistry of the otherly to the music. There was always like a verse, a chorus, a bridge, a hook, a sing-along section to what they did, but there was always something just a little bit different, something always just bustling underneath, whether it was like with the Velvet Underground with Nico, or even John Cale's later work. There was always that kind of musicality to it that grounded it in something. And they took like the pop, especially as I say with the Velvet Underground, took that pop aesthetic and just melded it and kind of contorted it slightly to still be kind of, something that people would listen to, but also something that would challenge people. Now, famously, the Velvet Underground during their very early career did not sell as many records as they have sold now. It's kind of one of those long tail things. And that could very well be the case for Charli XCX. I think Brat was an incredible piece. And I think her previous work seemed to be building up to that in the way that Brat is kind of built up to this. And I really like that when you see an artist has a record or a history of work that seems to feed into the next one, even if it's just tangential. So I think it's an absolutely incredible track, and I cannot wait to delve into the soundtrack itself. I think it's going to be something very special.
I think I'm going to die in this house. Here, Charli XCX captures a quiet, unflinching acceptance of what it means to be consumed by the very thing you've built. And that the heart of the house, the idea that creation and destruction aren't opposites, they are co-conspirators. Charli XCX and John Cale have built something supernaturally and emotionally haunting. A song that lingers long after it ends, where every breath sounds claustrophobic and lived in. When Charli XCX came off Brat, she could have doubled down on what worked before. The hyperpop, the digital chaos, the anti-design aesthetic behind the strobing lights. But instead, she walked into the dark. House is the sound of someone burning down the neon world they built and shifting through the ashes for something new. Charli's casting of John Cale, the eternal outlier, brings lived gravitas in a voice that cracks through the song with all the weight of experience. Together, they create something timeless, bridging the gap between Charli's and Cale's stylistically distinct work and tangential takes on the mainstream. Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights is the perfect stage for that. Itself an adaptation of established classic. Fennell's work promises to add a millennial take on how pent-up passion becomes all-consuming to Bronte's brooding 19th century source material. Understanding Gothic can be both aesthetic symbolism and pure emotion. There's a reason pop keeps coming back into the Gothic world. Beneath all the lights and filters, pop music has always been about the same thing as great novels. Mellow, dramatic longing. That endless search for connection. Charli XCX built house, and placed inside it the artistic ghost of John Cale, holding two generations, two sensibilities, and two ghosts.
And so it goes, and there it went. Charli XCX, John Cale, House, Wuthering Heights, and Emerald Fennell. These are incredible first insights into the soundtrack itself and the tone of Emerald Fennell's upcoming take on Wuthering Heights. But what do you think? What do you think of Charli XCX? What do you think of John Cale? What do you think of the two of them together? And what do you think of House? Are you excited to see Wuthering Heights the movie? Are you excited to see the rest of what Charli XCX can do for the soundtrack? What are your thoughts on her writing music for this movie and casting John Cale in the very first glimpse that we've got? Comment down below and let me know. And as always, thank you for watching The Last Mixtape. I really hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, please drop a like and a subscribe if you can. It would help the channel immensely. But for now, see you next week.
First person that drew my attention to the difference between noise and quiet was John Cage. European culture kind of ingrained in everybody that the concert hall was sacrosanct, and you went in there and you sat and you tried to focus on, you had to be quiet and listen to the music, and that's the only way to really enjoy the music, which he pointed out was a fallacy because you can't get to that point anyway.